Welcome back. You're with us on Editors Roundtable, and this week we're in conversation with Mahesh Patil of Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund. Mahesh, so, at a slightly broader level, I think when we talk about the dip in the market or some consolidation in the market, this market, I don't think, has seen a real dip ever since COVID ended, right? It's been a near one-way rally, and dips are 2-3% very shallow, right, because of the sheer amount of money that you guys are pulling in. Look at those numbers. I mean, the SIP numbers, 20,000 crores on a monthly basis. Last month's equity number was a very solid 27,000 crores. So is the sheer power of domestic liquidity, while it's great in the larger scheme of things, is it itself becoming a challenge now in the near term as a fund manager?
Yeah, so I think that the wall of money which is coming in, okay, it's good also because you want a steady inflow, right?
Yeah.
So I think SIP flows are fine, I think, right? Because they come on a regular basis, so I don't think it's such a challenge over here. Obviously, when there is a large deployment needs to, if you raise a large fund, for example, right, and suddenly you get a very large inflows over here, then you have to put that money in a defined kind of a time frame. In that case, probably it can become a bit of a challenge, and more so in the small cap, right, in the mid cap, where the liquidity is very, very low. Obviously, you get events like some of these liquidity events which come in, right, where there are some blocks which are offering. And at higher levels, we see supply coming. The market always, there is a supply at various points which comes in, right? And a lot of PE investors who had invested earlier, I mean, that's one source of supply which is there. Some promoters selling in, some IPOs which have been coming in the market. I think we've seen a good flow, especially in the small cap and mid cap space. And there have been good quality companies, okay, which have also come to the market. So that also provides an opportunity to really to deploy that. But clearly it depends on the segment. In the small cap segment, I think clearly if the money flow is large at any point, it takes time. And in that scenario, I think, again, we will deploy. So you have various ways of managing that liquidity, right? You might park that money in index for some period of time before you find an opportunity to really identify a stock.
Okay, I have, sorry, I just had one question. Just coming back to the week and how the week has shaped up, right? The one sector which has started to now consolidate a little bit around these levels is autos. So I wanted your thoughts there. I mean, this week we saw M&M, gain quite a bit, but some of the other names have started to see a little bit of correction. Tata Motors around 990, but the going has been very good for this sector so far. Do you think that this is just a consolidation before the next leg up, or do you think that the sector itself has matured a bit?
So if you look at this sector last year, I mean, we saw a pretty strong growth, right? Especially in two-wheelers again. After that COVID wave, in fact, in two-wheelers, we have still not reached the peak, okay, which we had pre-COVID. I mean, that number is still, we are still behind that. So in that sense, okay, it was a catch-up game. And also we saw a margin improvement, right, as commodity prices came down. And in autos, more so, I think, besides the volume growth, I think, again, that's a slightly misleading because your revenue growth has been much stronger because there's a lot of premiumization which is happening, right? In cars, for example, you see 50% of the car or more are now SUVs, right, which are much pricier. Even in commercial vehicles also, the trucks which have been selling a higher tonnage trucks, right? So to that extent, I think that has helped. But clearly, I think what we're seeing is now, I think the last couple of months, there is some kind of a slowdown. That initial growth, what we saw, especially in commercial vehicle, already it is showing a negative kind of a growth. In passenger vehicles also, I think that growth rate, which is around 10%, has now come down to low single digits. Right. So clearly, I think volume growth is kind of moderating down, and that's reflecting in some of these stocks now, trying to consolidate. And again, the valuations there have also kind of moved up, right, because of the large outperformance over there. I think the sector will probably take some kind of a breather over here. And within that, I think the volume growth will be probably more stronger in the two-wheelers, followed by four-wheelers, and then the commercial vehicles. I mean, that's where our priority will be in this sector.
Mahesh, you've seen so many cycles. I want a view on thematic funds. That's been a trend now. A lot of MNCs are launching thematic funds. Past has been that, normally thematic funds come at the peak of that exuberance. What's your general take on the thematic funds, and what would be your advice to normal retail investors?
So if you like now in the market, there are quite a few thematic funds, right? I mean, across sector, right? Yes. I mean, need not participate in an NFO only, right? Right. And I think we have seen that actually, especially in the last 2-3 years. If you are able to play particular themes, I mean, the outperformance, what we have seen is been huge. And like, for example, we manage an asset kind of asset allocation fund of fund, which is there, right? So in that, what we do is we tend to play the equity allocation through the thematic side much more. And that has enabled us to generate a large, better outperformance, provided you're able to get some of these themes. So I think it makes sense for somebody who has a particular view on a particular sector and wants to play that. I think then thematic funds make a sense. But one should not go just with the momentum, right? Because normally what happens is...
Which is what usually ends up happening.
Yeah, which you see a theme play out for the last 2-3 years, and that's where people come in looking at the past returns.
Correct.
Yeah.
See, a lot of thematics, you also sometimes need to be slightly counter-cyclical. I mean, that's where it helps, right? Because we've seen that certain cycles, play out, and you are slightly ahead of that with certain framework. Then I think that can be a good way of trying to generate some extra alpha in the market. And the best way is to play through a thematic fund, right? Because you identify a theme instead of trying to pick up the stock. If you're able to just buy a particular fund or an index, I think you should get the upside over the
Speaking of thematics, would you be comfortable buying PSU stocks now?
So that's again, that's done fantastically well. Right? I mean, we have one of the largest fund there on the PSU side, and that's doing fantastically well. I would say at these levels, looking at the past returns, I would be a bit cautious. Obviously, the outlook there, right, on the PSU stock is still good. Some of these stocks, if you look at whether it's the power sector, defense sector, I mean, we don't see any concern on the fundamental side. But just because there's sharp run-up, I think one would want advice to go slightly slow over there. And don't expect, again, expectations also have to be managed, right?
Yeah.
People come with expectations, they'll get similar returns.
300%.
And that's where the problem comes in. I think that is clearly behind over there.
Okay, well, Mahesh, thanks a lot for joining in. We have run out of time, not out of questions, but thank you so much for being with us on the show. With that, it is a wrap on this edition of Editors Roundtable. Thanks a lot. Have a great weekend.